Hi everyone, this is Living for the Weeknight, and on today's episode, I will be with Alice from Sweden. So, Alice is someone I met in Berlin during a music event, and I won't give away the story because it's mentioned in the episode. You'll find out about it, but it's a cool story. And so, Alice is a DJ and aspiring producer who currently lives in Barcelona. She's actually recently been playing some pretty cool events, including the Brunch Electronic After Party in Barcelona, which I think was on the 17th of September. She played the after party for the event, which actually Amelie Lenz headlined, so that's pretty cool. And I think you guys are really going to like this episode. Like, Alice is someone who very openly talks about her journey through music and what led her to music, and she also gives a very open and honest account of like what it was like trying to achieve balance and how it impacted her mental health and happiness. And I was honestly in awe during the interview just about how raw and open she was. And I felt like there was a lot to learn, a lot to take away from this episode. So honestly, it was such a pleasure to interview her. And if you're not already, I hate doing the plugs, but if you want to follow my Instagram, if you're not already, it's living.for.the.weeknight, or just typing living for the weeknight, and I'm pretty sure it'll come up. And I'd appreciate it because on Instagram I post a bit more about the episodes. I not only provide updates, but I also provide some stories and also like fun clips of things that didn't make the episode or outtakes. And I give any updates, such as I recently announced on my Instagram that I'll be making stickers and giving everyone free stickers if you want them. So feel free to give a follow, and once again, if you have any feedback, just message me for Instagram and I'm more than happy to take it on board. So let's step into the episode. So hey Alice, it's good to have you on the podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm here in Barcelona and the weather is really nice. So yeah, I can't complain. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's I'm not in Barcelona. I'm in England, which is not bad. The weather's actually good here after the long, miserable English summer that I got to miss and be away for. The sun's came out, and now, as true English people, we're complaining about how hot it is.
All right, yeah, that sounds fair. I think there's always a reason to complain about the weather.
It's just English people. It's not even the weather. We just like to complain. Like
Yeah,
when I'm complaining, I'm getting joy out of that. It's a lot of fun.
it really is. It's a cheap fun.
It's a cheap fun.
Yeah.
And given you're Swedish, do you guys also like to complain?
I honestly think that Swedish people complain very little about the weather. I think we talk a lot about it, but we don't really complain because we're like used to so many things. I think Spanish people tend to complain a little bit more, actually.
Yeah, Spanish people love to complain. I actually lived there for a year, but that's a good segue for me to step into it. Today I'm with Alice, and Alice is actually someone I met in Berlin. I don't want to say where because I think it might sound pretentious. What do you think? Would it sound pretentious if I said where we met?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'll say it anyway. Okay, so we went to an event called Reef, which was at Berghain in Berlin. And yeah, we met there at what must have been 7 a.m. in the smoking area. I saw two people stretching and speaking Spanish. At first I was like, oh, they're stretching. That's really good of them. Like, you don't see a lot of people stretching during raves because it's important. And then I was like, oh, they're speaking Spanish. I always want to practice my Spanish. 7 a.m. in Berghain, where the bass drowns out any form of sound, makes it really hard. So that didn't go so well. But yeah, that's how Alice and I met. And then we actually got talking. And it turns out Alice does some pretty cool stuff. So tell me, Alice, who are you and what do you do?
Well, thank you for that little background story. And that's actually a really nice thing about the club scene in Berlin, that I met a lot of really kind people that you actually want to talk to the next day as well, which I think is a really good review for Berlin. But yeah, my name is Alice. But I actually go by the artist name Sylvia. And I'm a DJ and I guess also aspiring producer who lives in Barcelona. But I'm originally from Sweden, from Stockholm. And I've been in Barcelona the past 7 years, so pretty much my whole adult life. And while here, I play my gigs, mostly here. And I'm mainly a techno DJ, but I also kind of venture into other genres every now and then.
And kind of what brought you to Barcelona? Like, were you before you went to Barcelona? Were you already DJing and trying to produce music, or was it only once you'd moved to Barcelona that you went on this journey?
Yeah, it was definitely once I came here because before I had studied classical music for many years, and in Stockholm that was pretty much my only relationship to music. And then I moved here because I always wanted to leave Sweden as soon as possible. Nothing wrong with Sweden, but it's also it's quite small, and I think it's important to get to know other places. And Barcelona kind of seemed interesting to me because I had never been, and I liked the idea of moving somewhere where I don't know literally anyone. And also, I was very fascinated by the architecture, and I felt like, well, the city was beautiful, can't go that wrong. So yeah.
Well, it's been 7 years, so it couldn't have went that wrong.
I know, exactly. It's difficult to leave now.
There you go. And so you mentioned how before you studied classical music. Would you say that's kind of how you got into music, or has there always been kind of music in your family?
I think honestly, my biggest influence from like an early age was my mother, because she had a lot of vinyls and CDs with like 90s hip hop and also some like 80s music, and she was always like listening to this and being like, this is music from your mom's golden age. And early on I really started liking hip hop, so I was always like, this was before computers were that advanced, so I was like taking my dad to the library and be like, hey, can we rent this CD with this rapper? And him reading like the titles of the songs, like how rap songs are usually, and he was like, well, but don't get too influenced by this. So I think that hip hop was also like a very big part of my musical upbringing. But then I think I was around 9 when I started this classical music school in Stockholm, which is quite a special place. And then I was playing piano for many years and had a pretty strict teacher from Russia, and music was a very big part of my life every day, and everybody that surrounded me as well were playing an instrument. So I think that definitely has affected the music I do now more than I even think.
Nice, I like that. It's your influences. It comes from somewhere. And would you say though, like being at a classical music school, was that something that kind of enhanced your love for music or changed it, or what was the feeling of like being there?
I think it made music something natural to me, so something that's always there, always part of my relationships, always something that kind of ties everything together. So with my friends from school, it was normal that we were playing, we were having a break, and then somebody would say, okay, now so I have to go to my lesson, and we came to each other's concerts, and there was like from Twin Peaks, there's always music in the air. It's like became something natural, like something constant.
Nice, nice. I like that. And do you still play the piano
No, I don't at all.
at all? Can you still play it though?
No. I'm scared to find out because I've dedicated so many hours of my life to playing the piano. But it's pretty much logistics. I can't have a piano in my apartment. I have a right here where I'm sitting. I have a small piano, but it's just for MIDI notes
Yeah.
for Ableton. But yeah, no, I probably can't anymore. I could probably play something, but
Nice, nice. It's like the piano is actually something I've always wanted to learn. I think because for me it feels like such a romantic instrument. There's like so many emotions you can portray through the piano. But I guess that's true for music in general.
Yeah, it is. But there is something special about how tactile a regular instrument is, and how you create kind of a relationship with your instrument. There's definitely something quite special in that, and I think it compares a little bit to vinyl DJing versus using CDJs. That it's way more tactile, like you're actually touching something, you're struggling a little bit with it, you have to get to know the instrument you're working with, and obviously like a laptop is not the same thing.
It's not. It's an interesting debate when we talk about kind of the advances with technology, because of course vinyl is so much harder to DJ on. But I always think about, where do you kind of draw the line with how technology advances? Because even say if we talk about, I don't know, my regular office job, where what is it better to use technology with it, or do I go back and use a notebook and pen? Like, do you kind of see what I mean in terms of like that? But I know that's a very different case, and I kind of understand, when some people talk about the difference in between CDJing and vinyl, and a lot of the people who got into the scene when it was only vinyl, they do talk about how much easier it is now, and I don't know, I guess it's true. Do you think so?
I always think about how it's so difficult to know, like you said, where to draw the line, because if I think about softwares like Traktor, or using your computer, using sync, there is some sort of resistance within me. But then again, I imagine that's the same resistance vinyl only DJ will feel about CDJs. So I don't really have any good arguments for this feeling that I have, that this is too easy, this is cheating, this is not real DJing. Because in the end, I think you can, you can probably use a variety of tools and make something great. And there's no really like a good reason for this kind of elitism. But in the end, who knows, in the future, maybe it will be even easier and something will get lost. So I think we have to respect everything for what it is, and also support vinyl DJs and vinyl shops so they can keep existing.
Yeah, because it's part of the culture, and it's what's brought the music to being what it is. And it is super interesting, because I don't know, we might soon be in a future where music is produced by AI, and we have AI mixes. Who knows? We might have an AI DJ. Kind of creepy, but yeah, it's interesting to see where it goes. But I think you're right. It's about showing respect, and I kind of do feel, though, when I go to events, I'm not thinking about, okay, if I see someone who's doing a vinyl only set, I feel like, wow, that's incredible to see them doing what they're doing, to see them getting all the vinyls out and just making decisions in the moment. It's super cool, and I'll appreciate it. But at the same time, when I see someone using, yes, a laptop or CDJs, if they've played me a set and I've enjoyed the music and I've enjoyed the journey they've taken me on, it's still enjoyment. And if you're putting on a show for people to have a good time, I guess that's enough, right?
Mm. Yeah, I think so. I think also the technique is easier with CDJs, and it's even easier with a computer. But I think what separates a really good DJ from just a person who knows the technique is definitely the kind of emotional ride you can take people on. And I think we all have had moments of hearing a DJ that maybe we really like, but we're not feeling that much. And other nights, there's this like magic in the air, which I think is created from the DJ, with the audience, with the venue, the lights, and I think that's kind of the real art form, like finding that sweet spot.
It's so true, and I think you're right in that aspect. Like, it's never. I find there's so many different factors that influence what kind of feeling I feel from a night. Like, say for example, I might hear the most amazing like set by a DJ, but if the crowd's off and the vibe's not there, it can really influence my feeling in the moment. Or if the sound system's bad, or if the lights are, I don't know, just triggering my eyes too much. It's interesting. And yeah, before I turn this into yet another episode where I talk about music too much because I love music,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask. So, you moved to Barcelona and you got into DJing there. I recall you saying you were studying in Sweden before, like at university. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
And what were you doing at university?
I was studying psychology, but with focus on neuroscience. So that was 2 years ago now, maybe three. The pandemic has kind of altered my time perception, but somewhere around there. And so what I did was that I moved back to Sweden. I had been doing music, but I was pretty much a bedroom DJ, and those were also like the only circumstances the pandemic allowed. So I knew I was really passionate about music. I knew I had a really good thing going here with, my friends, my community here in Barcelona. But I also didn't see it as like a viable option to actually live from it. There was no like evidence in my surroundings that like I could live off this, I was DJing at home. It didn't feel like something that's like I can give up my like a potential future job for this. So I was like, okay, so I should probably wrap it up here. I'll move back to Sweden where they have this really good university for exactly this type of psychology, and I'll keep doing music, but kind of like after I'm done with my studies. So that was pretty much like 2 3 months, maybe a little bit more before I was moving. The restrictions started to lessen up, and there was a ton of underground parties being organized, which was a really good moment for beginners having their first couple of gigs, because it was a very unpretentious and very like everybody who knows something can take a shot at it. And it was a really interesting time, and I started gigging a lot. And I felt like, yeah, this is going pretty well. I'm getting to know a lot of people, but I was still pretty determined that I will move back to Sweden. I will study. So I moved back, but I started traveling quite often to Barcelona for gigs. I became part of a collective called No Tags, and I was traveling at least once per month. And my life in Sweden was really nice when it comes to the studies, but it's a pretty big step from having lived so long in Barcelona, which is a super sociable, sunny, artistic city, to Stockholm, Sweden, which is quite square in many ways, though very beautiful and very calm. So as the year kind of was ending, my first year at university, I decided to spend the summer in Barcelona. I had just gotten contacted by an agency who wanted to represent me, and I thought, well, okay, I can be there for 2 months, kind of see what happens, and then I'll go back. And then I just realized that, wow, I am so much happier when I wake up in the morning, when I'm, doing this, and when I'm here in Spain. And I felt like I was giving up a lot for my studies, and that my studies were pretty much giving me the security, which is something amazing and something that's definitely worth a lot. But I kind of felt like I was giving up too much in my other life, and I wasn't really ready to let it go. So I decided to move back full time, and now I'm really happy that I did that. First, because I've had so many amazing experiences, but also because I think there is no right or wrong when it comes to these kinds of dilemmas. But I do think that our body tells us a lot. So if you wake up in the morning and you feel happy, you feel excited about your life, you feel like you're really there, for your life, you're really active, you're really engaged in it, then I think that's the only kind of sign we can actually look out for if we're asking ourselves if we're making the right decision.
That's so true, it is. And I think a telling sign for me there was you said it's kind of like it's more your studies were getting in the way of you being able to be involved with music, and it shows that that's really what you wanted to do, because otherwise you would have said, yeah, the DJing thing was getting in the way of my studies. And it's nice to hear that, where you could kind of recognize that even though, yes, your studies can give you security, if you're not feeling happy in the moment and excited with what you're doing, then kind of what does it matter? Like, it's of course I get the dilemma with people, but you got to listen to your body, as you said. You got to do what feels right.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we won't always be able to do what feels right. I mean, there will be times in life where maybe for some reason we have to sacrifice this joyful feeling for something we need to do. I mean, in my case, for example, I don't have like huge living costs. I don't have children, and I can imagine that. I think that was also part of my decision, that I thought, well, now is probably a good time to do something like this, because I can't really come back in 10 years, maybe with even more responsibilities, and be like, hey guys, you remember me? I was a DJ who played a little bit after the pandemic, you know? It's kind of like when you have momentum and you have an opportunity, like, you know, to kind of go for it. And that was what was right for me. And I guess there are so many different situations out there.
I actually love that. It's so true with when you do have momentum and opportunity, it's you can't really put it on hold. You kind of have to run with it. I actually wrote that down in my separate part of my notes while I'm doing this interview, in my personal notes, to be like, when I have opportunity, run with it. So thank you. I like that. So okay, so you quit your studies, you went back to Barcelona, you were doing gigs and stuff. When you started out, were you able to survive from DJing, or did you have to do another job?
Yeah, I actually immediately started working as a realtor when I came back, at a Swedish firm, because I definitely did not get enough money to live from the DJing. And actually, the first few months, I had like a real dry spell. Like, I had been away. I wasn't getting like any good gigs, and it was pretty frustrating. And I was pretty worried and tense all the time. And when I did have gigs, I was way over analyzing and getting really nervous. So I think that was like a really difficult time in my life, because I knew I was letting go of very comfortable and also interesting path, and I didn't get any like immediate response, which was saying like, you're doing the right thing, you know. So it was pretty stressful at first. I remember like being kind of down, but then yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I feel like our mindset. I'm not a hashtag universe person, but sometimes I feel like if you change your mindset, also the opportunities kind of come, because there was at some point I just started relaxing and thinking, well, you know, this is where I am in my journey. Like, I'm also not ready to get booked for a gig with 500,000 people, and you know, this is where I am right now, and I can't expect everything to always go well if I'm choosing this. I need to be able to handle the ups and downs with some sort of equilibrium, because otherwise I will get too caught up in success or not success, because there are no guarantees here. So I started really, really relaxing. I didn't have like any reason to relax, but I just came to that point, and then the luck kind of turned, and really interesting things came up, and I had the opportunity to really take big steps forward, and yeah, so I still try to keep that in mind, though, that it could happen again, but you can't give up so easy, you know, like you will have to kind of live with the ups and downs of it.
It's true, and I guess there's always I guess for you, especially after you'd quit your studies, you'd moved to pursue this. It's sometimes it's your own perception can feel a lot worse than the reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we kind of do live in the society where you're told to do things faster, that there's a time limit, that there's this and that, but sometimes you have to let, I guess, time just go. Like, there's a plethora for reasons of why things happen, why they don't, and I guess patience is important, especially in music, it seems.
Yeah, I do think that, and I also do think that being impatient can actually take away a lot of the joy, and also make you a little bit entitled. I think you really have to grow within your own sound and develop it, and kind of let it take its time, because otherwise it's really difficult to enjoy the process if you're always thinking about like what you want to be. And what I try to do is that I make sure I have fun when I do music, and when I practice DJing, and when I have gigs. And it's obviously not always that easy, but I really try to think like, how can making music feel good today? You know, not like in 1 year when I will play there, or when this will happen. Like, how can I make it fun today? Like, what would be cool and fun to do today? And that's kind of my secret weapon when I start feeling like anxious, like, oh, I should be, this should be progressing faster, or I should be doing this. Then I'm like, nah, if I'm not enjoying it today, I'm not going to enjoy it later on either.
Yeah, because that's kind of the separation, is that you don't want it to kind of turn into something else where it feels more of your job to pay the bills rather than pursuing your passion.
Exactly.
But given you were DJing, and you said you were talking about you had that nervousness at the start and things were a little bit slow. But when things were kicking up and you were working at the same time, how was it achieving balance? Like, did you have to keep to a schedule? I just want to kind of know, how did you make it work?
To be honest, I think I didn't make it work, but I really tried. I was working 40 hours per week, Monday to Friday.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it was like an office job. Well, I was a realtor, so I had like viewings, and I was at the office. And honestly, I was so tired when I came home every day. And the last thing I wanted to do was to do anything productive at all. So that made me actually start feeling like music was like a chore, it was something I had to do, it was something on my to-do list, because if I don't do this, then why am I here? Why did I quit my studies? So I was in that loop of like being at my job, not feeling like I was doing my best, because, I was kind of waiting for the moment to get home and do music, and then doing music and feeling like I was really tired. And also, I feel like sometimes a full-time job can also kind of drain your creativity. And I've actually heard from other friends who have done similar things that even a part-time job kind of drains their creativity. And I do think there is a way of balancing it. I unfortunately was not able to find it. Maybe also the job wasn't really right for me. But I was really trying so hard to make it work. I was going to therapy. I was like, constantly looking for strategies, ways to organize my day, but it just like wouldn't, work out. So actually, it all ended with the fact that I got pretty severe insomnia, and I got pretty depressed, and I had to look for help. And then I was on a sick leave until I realized that, okay, I can't really do this anymore. I need to take a leap of faith here, because this is not working out. Like, I've really been trying. And yeah, I don't think that has to be everybody's experience. I think it depends a lot on what your day job is. And also maybe giving it a little bit more time. But for me, that was what happened.
Yeah, and it's hard because we're all different people, and there isn't really a you can't, like, there is self-help books that do help, but there isn't kind of you read this text or you go do something and then everything's fixed and it works. It's kind of like you have to almost get it wrong a bit faster and learn from it, which makes it very difficult. And like during that time when you were going to therapy and you were dealing with insomnia, did you find yourself that while you were off sick, you were still trying to create and trying to DJ, or did you have to take a break from that as well?
Well, actually, just when the sick leave started, I started getting way more bookings than I had before. So the good thing about getting booked for gigs is that it gives you a deadline. So it's kind of like, if you're just like have this abstract idea of like if I would start drawing, for example, I would say, okay, I have to draw a little bit every week. I think that's easier to kind of say, I'll do tomorrow if you're kind of depressed and low. But if you have like, okay, on Saturday I'm going to Madrid and I'm gonna play, then it wakes you up somehow. So I think there was a pretty good timing there. I think I would definitely not have been as active if it wasn't for these bookings. So they really like kept me going, and I'd say they kept me going until I actually started feeling better. And when I was feeling better, I could work on my relationship with having a routine, with being productive, and all the thoughts one can have about these things, and finding the joy, but also having discipline. But I had to really recreate that from nothing because I had been so frustrated with that process before.
Yeah, and I can really imagine there. And so, would you say, given the bookings actually were increasing, and because you weren't at work, was that bringing you more happiness, and in turn, was that helping with your insomnia and your depression?
Yeah, it really did. I started feeling better, which was really nice because there's something about being depressed that makes you think like, okay, this is how I will feel for the rest of my life. But I started feeling better. I was motivated, and it was also quite empowering for me to actually say, okay, there was a reason I was depressed. Like, it wasn't working for me. This is not what I want to do. Like, I want to dream a little bit bigger and fight a little bit harder to actually have a reality that I like waking up to. Um, so I think that was kind of empowering because before I felt more of like guilt, like why am I not able to make this work? And then I started shifting towards like this doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it is, as you said, it's telling you were trying to achieve balance, but at the end of the day, you weren't it didn't actually give you the ability to pursue music in the way you wanted to pursue it. And I think it's actually a good thing that you were able to recognize that and separate and say, look, it doesn't work for me. Why should I be trying hard to do this other job at the same time if it's not bringing me joy and happiness? And it seems like because now music is your career that you have found a way to make it work. And so would you say that was like a big pivotal changing moment for you in your music career?
Yes, I would say so. It definitely wasn't like suddenly, I'm rich of this, but it was definitely a shift. Yeah, no, nothing dramatic happened, like seen from the outside, but for me, these like gigs I was getting and this shift was definitely something important. And I mean, I'm not against the idea of having a job in the future, another job, a day job. I think it definitely has a lot of perks. Like, for example, what we were talking about, you don't start mixing like your passion with what pays your rent, which takes off a little bit of the stress. And also, I think it's good if you do projects, maybe you're more able to pay other artists and graphic designers. And I'm also interested in a lot of other things. So I think that there's nothing inherently bad in having a day job, but rather I think we have to be very conscious of not playing it too safe and ending up feeling miserable, but rather like find something which serves us, which works for us, and be very aware of our bodies, like how am I actually feeling?
Yeah, kind of a conscious effort because it's not like you just go to it's not like you're just living normally and then all of a sudden you're depressed. it kind of works with, it's kind of like a, I don't want to say progressive. I was trying to figure out another word, but you kind of know what I mean. It doesn't happen over one day. It's kind of very gradual. It's a day by day thing, but sometimes you don't notice it in the moment. And as you said, it's just important to recognize, I guess, the signs early on.
Definitely. And for me, I don't know, I think there's a trap also in telling yourself, I should be able to do this, I should have energy to do this. Obviously, sometimes that's true. Sometimes we need to kind of, find some energy and do stuff, challenge ourselves. But sometimes I think that can be kind of a dangerous narrative, because it makes us cross lines that maybe can end up being quite dangerous for our mental or physical health.
Yeah, it's super true. And would you say then, since now, because you're able to give everything for music, what's the impact been on your mental health and happiness since?
No, I've been feeling really grateful because I feel like I'm having the opportunity to live a life where every little part of my life, everything that makes up a life, is kind of aligned, and it feels very special because I've been used to having a part of my life which is really me, and another part where maybe I have to kind of put on a mask and be somebody else. So I feel super grateful, and I think gratefulness is a very good like precursor to happiness. I think that I'm living like experiences which are really meaningful to me, and I think and I hope that like when I look back when I'm old, I will think like, yeah, like being able to do something like that is definitely worth it. Like how even if it goes well, even if it doesn't, it's still a really, really nice time in my life. And I feel also very motivated and inspired, which is amazing. And yeah, I feel like I'm growing with the music. I feel like, we're giving good energy to each other, and kind of, I think that also shows in a person and attracts other people who are in a similar headspace. And yeah, I haven't been depressed since, so that's really nice. Doesn't mean I'm always always happy, but I would still say the majority of my days are very nice.
That's good, and I think it's important as well to recognize it. Not every day is not going to be the best day of your life.
For sure.
And I think like just being able to recognize you can have some days where you feel a bit low or a bit down, and it's fine. It's okay. But it's good to hear that your headspace has been a lot better since making the shift and giving it all for music. And would you say since then have you found your like creativity's been burning? Have you been getting booked more? How's your life in music been now as compared to before in that kind of aspect?
Well, I think it definitely goes in the right direction, but I think that also makes sense because I haven't been gigging for so long, so I think it's probably the first few years. You're constantly super excited when there's a new club contacting you, or you go to another city. But yeah, it's been a really really nice year. So this sick leave started when that was January, so I haven't been working since January, and since then I've gotten going steadily upwards. And that has also made me believe more and more that this is actually something I could do. I'm not saying it will definitely work out because I don't know that, but I'm getting more and more evidence or response from the world, which is telling me that this is worth giving a go. So it's been really fun. I mean, I'm still like always. I don't think it's imposter syndrome, but it's like kind of like, wow, I can't believe I'm gonna do this. Like a few years ago, this would have been like a huge dream for me, and that feeling is not negative. It's like, okay, like I have to step up to the occasion. Like I'm gonna do this, and then when you actually do it and it goes well, and you see that you're more capable than you think, then I think yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
It's,
So
as you
yeah,
said before, it's gratefulness, just feeling good about where you are, and that does sound like such a lovely feeling to have.
yeah, definitely.
And so it's actually been pretty recent that you've went full time with music. Then you said January, right, of this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and because because in my, I guess in my head, because when you told me you DJ, you're aspiring to produce, I for some reason assumed this person's been doing it for like 3 or 4 years full time, um,
No.
because that was my perception I had. Because you seem really confident about what you're doing. I can tell you you love music. So I just assumed you'd been doing this for like so long full time. So it's actually cool to hear. It's like it's more of a recent thing, and now I bet there's quite a lot of exciting adventures for you to go on. Like it seems like it's a really good moment for you right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm trying to really enjoy it and kind of not think too much of the future, like being present, but also like keeping a little bit like a heads up for like challenges that can arise. And as you said, now is a really good moment, but I mean, I don't want to be cynical, but obviously there will be struggles also in the future. And obviously I've had to kind of reevaluate my relationship to money. I have to be more conscious. I have to budget. But yeah, no, I've actually 3 or 4 years ago was pretty much when I started playing at home, and then I had my first gig ever. It must have been now a little bit more than 2 years ago.
Wow, that's really cool. That it is. It's just kind of snowballed since there, and here you are. And I want to ask, like, is that do you kind of have any aspirations of where you want it to go, or are you just more trying to be in the moment?
No, I think I have, in a way, a pretty clear picture of where I wanted to go, and in a way, I'm pretty flexible. So, what I'm mostly working on right now is to kind of leave the perfectionism and start releasing the music I produce, and then I would like to maybe find a way to also give back a little bit more to the community, because there can be a quite of like individualistic reality for a lot of artists, and it would be nice to find a way, become a part of a project or start my own project which can give back a little bit more to the scene. And I would like to keep gigging. I would like to keep gigging in new countries and cities. But I would also like to build slowly and steady, and kind of, feel like I deserve being where I am and kind of working on my sound. Maybe that's not a very clear vision, but it but it feels sort of clear to me. Like it's about like keeping my values, but also like progressing forward. And yeah, if I'm lucky to have that opportunity, we'll see.
That's actually a really nice way to sum it up. Keeping your values but progressing forward. And to be honest, your vision, it did sound clear. Like and it's actually like brought some questions I had for you. So you're at the moment you're aspiring and you're producing music. How has like that kind of journey been in terms of finding out what it is you want to produce, and how long have you been producing music for?
I have been producing for like a little bit too long, because like not in comparison to other people, but like in comparison to my skill, because I started producing before I started DJing. And in the beginning, I was making like experimental dub, ambient noise kind of stuff, and my dream was to have kind of like a live with this, and I was working on that. But I was I had a very different mindset back then. I was super eager for things to go well. I was super impatient. I was like getting so frustrated with myself when I sat down to produce, because I was like, wow, this does not sound good. And I wasn't able to kind of enjoy that playful part. So I got really stressed about it. And then when DJing came into my life, it's it was kind of easier, I guess, to get kind of like an immediate feedback, and it was way more like rewarding, like instant gratification. Whereas producing is like definitely a long journey. So now the last year I've been kind of like getting back on the horse, and now I'm actually enjoying it and having fun, and it's something I do without having to think about it. It's like something fun. Um, so so yeah, now I'm producing more techno tracks, which is more similar to the style I DJ, and I definitely have a lot of things I want to do, but I think first and foremost I need to give back to this joy, and really working on my craft and my skills and my technique, and my listening capabilities, before I get like ahead of myself with all the things I would like to do one day.
Yeah, it's true. It's like we can only do what we're capable of, even as much as we'd like to do everything in one go. And would you say, like, did you ever go back to kind of like the old like music and sounds you produced, or this time round have you just kind of started afresh?
I think definitely. I mean, I have done several courses in music production, and I've also had a private teacher. So there's a lot ingrained in me when I start with a new attitude now. From then, and I'm still influenced by kind of the more experimental genres, but also DJing has taught me new things about music and about how a track should sound and how it sounds, at home and how it sounds in a club. So I think there's definitely been it's been quite helpful to play music now when I'm producing.
Would you say with producing, have you ever kind of been in a situation where you're feeling a bit of creative block, or you've had a day at the studio where you're just kind of sitting and kind of not so sure what to do, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that happens to me a lot. It happens to me with everything I do, I think, and I have a lot of strategies. One is quantity over quality. So yeah, maybe some days there will be nothing coming out of a production session. But if I repeat the production session every day, then there's more probability that something will actually come out of it. And then there's also like knowing when to give up, like knowing when to like, yeah, this is not good. Like this is not going to be good. So I'll leave it there. And then also working with other people, remembering like how much talent there is out there, and that it's really fun to just learn from others and be a part of this world, not take yourself so seriously. But I mean, there like when I started DJing, for example, if something didn't go well, I could start crying and like putting pause and like leaving the room. So I'm definitely not a very, I don't think I'm a really good learner. I think I'm quite impatient, but somehow it's worked out anyway.
Yeah, it's got you here now, so it's progressed little by little with the steps. And I think, as you said, it is important where it can be too easy. Like for myself with this project or any projects I'm pursuing, I never pursue them for so long because there was that thing of, oh, I would try something, I wouldn't be good at it because I don't know how to do everything because I just started out, and then because the quality wasn't where I wanted it to be, I'd kind of give up. But you're right, it's a process. Like, I don't think every session is unproductive. I think even if you're learning in the process, that's part of the journey, isn't it? And it's important to kind of be realistic with that aim. And I think I kind of agree with you with quantity over quality there, because sometimes you might go and do something and it might to you not be like the most technically qualitative piece of work you've done, but it might actually just come out really good. Like, have you ever heard of musicians saying before sometimes their most popular tracks or their best things they've made have come out of like 10 minutes in the studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
it's
I don't know. I don't know if I've heard that. Have you heard that?
I've heard it. I can't remember who
Yeah.
from, but different podcasts, music podcasts I've listened to, or interviews where I'll dig out an example for you later. I'll send you an example later. But there are like some incredibly like famous songs that are made, like really really famous songs that apparently have been like just made in like the space of 20 minutes of someone feeling like, oh, I don't feel like going to the studio, but I should. Then they go and they just make this thing out of nowhere,
Yeah, for sure.
which just goes to show. I think it could be a little too easy in our lives if we have to have all the boxes ticked before we do anything, because then you may never get anything done.
Definitely. I also think that one of my first DJ gigs, I think it was my second, was at a club with like Function One. It was a 3 hour set, and I had never played in a club. I had never used the equipment that they had, the club standard equipment. I was not used to the way it sounds in a club. And I was so scared because a big part of like the Barcelona scene was gonna be there, and I was really scared the whole day. And then I went there, and it did not go well. It wasn't a good gig. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good either. And I was suffering like through the whole 3 hours. But honestly, I've never learned as much as I did that gig. Because in the end, if you're performing something, you're always going to have to live with the fact that it could go wrong. That's not fun for a social being. But it definitely helped me to kind of like, okay, so this was pretty much the worst thing that could happen, and it happened, and I survived, and I got booked again at the same club. They gave me some advice on like, hey, maybe you should analyze your tracks in record box, and you can come here and practice with this equipment if you want to. Like, they were super encouraging, and yeah, I think that was a really good life lesson for me. So it's like important to be able to take some humiliation every now and then, whether it's a gig or it's like you're sitting in your studio and you're doing something and you're like, what is this?
Yeah, and it's because this is the thing in kind of every occupation. You're not going to do everything perfectly, no matter if, I don't know, if you're an accountant, if you're a football player, if you're a musician, if you're a lawyer. Not everything's going to go right all the time. And I think it's good that you were able to take that experience and learn so much from it. And I guess it did show you that it wasn't the end of the world. It didn't kill your music career. And maybe that kind of has made your kind of life as a DJ and aspiring producer a lot easier since.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not easier, but a little bit more humble, maybe.
Yeah. And given you've talked about now that was your worst moment, what's been your best moment and your like, I guess maybe your best moment as a DJ, but then also your favorite place you've played.
Um, Honestly, I think there are many, but I would like to highlight two. One is from very, very early on in my DJing days, where there was still like restrictions going on, but you could organize smaller events in independent venues. And me and a couple of friends got together and we organized an event in a squatter house, if that's the correct term.
Yeah, that is.
And we were, 8 friends, so really, really good friends, and all of us are DJs or musicians. And I had never organized anything, but we kind of like went there. We had to clean the whole place, and then we organized like one hell of a party. Like, it was really great, and I played like the set of my life. Like, probably if I would listen to it now, it would seem like really bad, but I was having like the time of my life. I felt like a superstar, and all my friends were playing super well that night, and there was just like this really magical energy. And now when I look back at it, it feels really innocent and fun, and definitely putting the community in the center and not the individual. Most of these friends are also now, moved on to bigger things. So we're all kind of more structured with everything. So I don't think we could actually make it happen again that way. It was very innocent. And then I would definitely like to highlight a party that it's a collective from Madrid called Face CTV, and they actually gave me the opportunity to play at an open decks. So I sent them a set and they booked me. And then they booked me again for a festival they organized, and they put me on the main stage and I did the closing. And they have an amazing sound system, but most of all, they are a great group of people. They really value musical quality, like they really know their stuff, but they're also pretty underground and they're very like respectful, like not so much about the hype, but yeah, I have a lot of good things to say about them. But yeah, amazing sound system, amazing lineup. I was closing after an artist called Yana Master, who's from Georgia, and I felt really, really happy to play there. I felt the audience was amazing. So yeah, those are two kind of memories.
I like that. I like that. It's I was just thinking right now of I quite often find like my favorite kind of events to go to are when, say, the people who put on the parties or the labels, promoters are more underground, because it feels like they're more running with what they like and what sounds good. Because I think there is the other side to it where these parties they do cost money to put on, so there's always a bit of a draw of. I've heard, like, I'm not sure if you've heard, but I've heard from other people who DJ that sometimes they're booked to play an event and they're told they need to play a certain style or sometimes even play certain tracks because of sponsorships and stuff. Like, have you ever had to deal with that?
No, I haven't. And I've also heard these stories. I think maybe it doesn't happen a lot in Spain. But yeah, I sometimes when I played at bigger clubs, I've been like dreading this a little bit. Like, what if they tell me to play this style of music? And I honestly don't know how I would handle it. So I will get back to you when it happens or if it happens.
Yeah. Have you ever had that moment where someone's come up to you while you're playing in the set and they've asked you to play a song?
Yeah, I was playing in Sweden once, and somebody came up to me and said like, "Can't you play something that we can like sing along with?" I was like, "No." So that was the closest I've gotten.
Yeah, it sounds.
But I've also been that person. When I was 18, moving to Barcelona, my first weekend, I went out to a club called Apollo. And I showed the DJ like on my phone, like, "Can you please play this Kid Cudi track?" And he just laughed. I was like, "No."
Yeah. Well, when you're young, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Young, 18, drunk, and willing to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is, because there's a lot of travel involved in your job, what's it like being booked to go to different countries and the travel aspect? Like, how is it for the enjoyment, and how do you find it with achieving balance with everything else, with kind of producing music and having a routine at home?
Well, I think that I definitely am not like a huge international DJ, so I think when this becomes something you do every weekend, that's a whole other level, and I think that must be really difficult. I think about that a lot. But with a few experiences I've had, so now maybe it's like once per month I have to play somewhere else. I think it's nice to see other places. It's definitely nice to be received as an artist and getting away from the local scene. But I like playing in Barcelona. I like when my friends are there. But also people are so sweet, like all over the world. Like, it's really nice to come somewhere and you don't know anyone, but everybody shares the love of the music, and people are usually very encouraging and, fun to talk to. It's also really cool to see other cities, like traveling with work, but in a kind of unexpected way. Let's say one day if it really goes well and I'd have to travel every weekend, I do think that's definitely seems quite straining. I don't know how people do it, and also there's the whole climate aspect of it. So yeah, you should definitely ask some really experienced DJ about that, because I'm curious as well.
Yeah, if I ever get to know one. Once you're a superstar in a few years, you can tell me how it is.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. And another thing I did want to ask you is, so with kind of being booked and with releasing music, there is the whole social media aspect to it. There is, promotion through Instagram or like TikTok or Facebook, even still. If do people still use Facebook? I think people do. Maybe, I don't know. But how do you have to do a lot of social media stuff yourself as well? And kind of what do you think about it all?
I think I'm kind of figuring out my relationship with social media where I have some like resistance to this me, my gigs, and but at the same time, you kind of have to do that thing. So now I'm doing like this weird combination of like not really wanting to be that person, but also like a little bit being that person. And I don't know, there's really like no coherency, but I think for me, maybe it's one of these things that like you just have to do it. It's your CV pretty much, it's your LinkedIn page. And for me, it's about maybe posting things that like not spamming, and being quite clear on like I will play here at this day, and sharing pictures from my life, but maybe not just the highlights, but rather like focus on the aesthetic appeal of like it doesn't just have to be me like putting on a banger in front of an audience, but more personal photos, kind of like not going full on artist page, but still kind of sharing my gigs and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I'm figuring it out still, and I think that it's definitely an interesting world. I don't know, can be pretty toxic as well, I think.
Yeah, it's because it's just the age we live in where, of course, if you post stuff and it gets seen, then more people have seen, more people to discover you. But at the same time, social media can be very impactful on your mental health. So there's that balance. I went to a festival in Portugal called Sound Waves. I think it was in July, and I actually bumped into one of the DJs who was playing there. I'm not going to say who. And we were just talking about social media a bit, and they were telling me that during their set, there's always a part where their social media representatives like, okay, when I want you to have like a minute or two of yourself dancing, so we can put that on TikTok. And they were telling me that they like dancing when they're DJing in general, but sometimes they kind of don't like it when it feels a bit forced, and they feel they have to do it to kind of make, I don't know, like a TikTok reel that's going to go viral.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think also there's, a whole other world kind of in electronic music where I don't know if I should call it underground, but pretty much like a lot of people doing really good stuff, like high quality stuff, but that are maybe not so famous, or maybe they're more, like this character in the local scene, which everybody knows there, but like if you're not, actually involved in that particular scene, you're not going to know of this person. And I think that it's like the whole business techno thing, it seems to come with a lot of stress. Obviously, it comes with more resources, which means more freedom, or maybe the opportunity not to have to work a regular job. But I think there's a whole other world there where people are doing great events, booking great artists, releasing really good stuff, but that are not as controlled, by big promoters and festivals. I know people who are pretty low key who still live off music as well, who maybe organize events in their local city and they have releases and they have a label, but they're not like this person you would recognize on the street. So I think you have to kind of, face situations as they come and be like, who do I want to be? Like, this comes with these pros and cons, and the other way comes with, others. So
Yeah, it's like, what do you want from it? And I think you're totally right in that aspect. I think about my favorite DJs, my favorite producers. Whenever people ask me, because I love drum and bass, when people tell me, "Oh, who do you like?" I'll say all these names. They're like, "I don't know who that is," and it's actually it does go to show, like, there are different ways for what you want from music and what makes you happy from it. You just kind of got to figure out what it is for you, and there isn't really a right answer or a wrong answer, I guess. Yeah, I think that's actually quite a nice way to finish the podcast. But before we say our goodbyes, Alice, do you want to plug your stuff?
Yeah, sure. I think you should all listen to my radio show, I'm Killed by Sylvia, which is at a UK radio station called Vandalay. We're also really cool, really good values, and a lot of other good radio shows. So that's something that's kind of like internationally available. And otherwise, follow my Instagram page, which is Sylvia.flack. And there I post my gigs and upcoming podcasts and releases. So yeah.
And is Flack, is that spelled FLAC?
Yes.
But no, it was lovely to have you on. I actually really liked that. It was quite a nice conversation. And it wasn't just us talking about niche aspects of music. It was more about your journey and what it means to you and where you are as a person. So I really liked that. That was super interesting. I'm actually excited to edit through it and listen to it again. Yeah,
it was really nice. As always, talking to you. We always kind of get into these interesting subjects. And you're very good you're a very good journalist.
Thank you. Zero experience, but here I am.
Doing it fine.
Getting by. But no, it was lovely to have you on, and yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you too.